Welcome back to my author vlog. I'm BB Morgan, Beatrice B. Morgan. I write fantasy, a little bit of horror. I've been dabbling in horror. It's not going too well, but that's a vlog for a different time. I wanted to start this series so that you can see what it's like to be an author from like week to week. I've been kind of tracking my progress over like this project that I've been working on, this high fantasy series. And so far I have stayed true to my No, I did miss a week. Never mind, I retract that statement that I just said. Anyway, welcome back to my little corner. And this week's not going to be very long. It's not going to be very insightful. I haven't felt good this past weekend. I was kind of just feeling meh. I don't know if it's just spring and things are blooming, but like my head hurt. I slept in both days of the weekend, and it's just not a lot of writing happened. I've been thinking about that and like what I could talk about on this little vlog. And I kept coming back to that old advice that keeps floating around. It comes back from time to time, which is like, I think Stephen King said it. Uh, you have to write every day if you want to be successful. And that is not true. It is honestly really dumb advice. I don't like it. More so, rather than write every day, the advice should really be you have to set a routine. You have to show up to put the words down. You just have to find the time to put the words down, to put the words on the page. And that's really what that advice is all about. It's not so much as like writing every day. It's just find the time to write and then stick to it. Show up for the writing sessions. Whatever those sessions look like for you. For me, personally, I write on the weekends because I have a full-time job that doesn't allow me to write. It's not the hotel night job that I could secretly write and they would never know about it. I don't advise you to write at your other job because if you write a book on a company computer on company time, they could kind of they could claim ownership of your work. So just don't do it, and if you do it, don't tell anybody. But this past weekend, my writing session, I slept in, I woke up, it was like 10 o'clock, which is late for me, versus last weekend I woke up at like before my alarm went off. So I was up and I was ready to go. Coffee was ready. And this weekend I was not in the writing headspace. I was not in the rough draft headspace, which is where I need to be right now. So like I kept coming back to that advice of like write every day. So my 2 cents on that advice is that it's dumb. Find your writing time, stick to it. And I've been working on book 5. If this is your first vlog that you're tuning in for, first of all, hi, how are you? Hello. Lost my train of thought there. It just went blue right off the cliff. But I set out to finish this high fantasy series that had been sitting on my computer since like 2020 at least. The idea started back in 2019, but it just didn't really evolve until about 2020. And the series was really like my pandemic book. This is the book that I really fell into during like the when nobody really knew what was going on and everything was tense and my anxiety was sky high. This is what I fell into. At least I remember. I don't really remember much. I worked during the pandemic. I didn't get to stay home. I had to work because I was an essential worker. You want to know the real people that came out during the pandemic? The weirdos. That is the people I got to deal with. Oh, that was a chunk of my mental health I'm never going to get back. But book 5 is what I've been working on. This high fantasy series, it started out as a quartet. It was a quartet for a very long time. And while I was working on book 4, which was going to be the final book, I kind of had this realization that the ending that I had was really rushed. It didn't fit. There wasn't enough story to really make the ending feel worth it. And I was in denial for a very long time that there needed to be a book 5. And I kind of finally came to that conclusion. I did a vlog on it, like the realization that it needed to be book 5. But anyway, I finished my draft of book 4 and I have moved on to book 5. And book 5 is in rough draft. No, hold on, pause, go back, reverse. Book 5 is in outline stage, which for me, the outline is like draft 0. It is me going through the main plot points and basically saying, this happens, this happens, this happened, this character does this character portrays this character with like notes along the way, be like, these characters are going here, but this is actually happening, but they don't know it yet. Like things like that, just so me, the author, just understands how the story is going to unfold. Like my outlines can be anywhere from like 200 words to like 10,000 words. It just depends on how much story I have when I'm doing an outline. And I've been going slow. Like rough drafts for me are typically slow. This one, like I put in some work last weekend. Like my rough draft right now is about, I want to say 21,000 words, which for one weekend session, 2 days, that is a lot. That is, I don't do that very often, but I had an idea for how I wanted it to start. And then I kind of just started writing. I'm like, okay, what if they do this? Okay, what if they do this? And the story just kind of unfolded itself, which that's really where I need to be mentally. Like that's the mind space that I am hunting for. Like that I was in the perfect writing headspace last weekend. Well, the weekend before the closest weekend, because this last weekend I was not in that headspace, and I did not get any more real estate done on the outline. I just finished up what I had already kind of rough drafted, because like how I rough draft, and I know it might be different for every single author. Some authors outline to death. Others kind of outline and then pants the rest of the way. I have done both. It's really just the projects themselves, the stories themselves, all kind of come about in a different way. This one in particular, book 5, I know where it ends. I kind of know where the midpoint is. I have all these plot points that I want to hit, which are actually plot points that I kind of wanted to hit in book 4, but I just didn't have the word space. Because when I had finished the draft, the latest draft, before I realized there was a book 5 of book 4, it was like already 130,000 words, and there still needed to be more to happen. Like, I knew there were scenes that needed to be better explained. There were a lot of scenes that were very quickly gone over. I'm like, ugh, I don't have room for all these things. And so I have more room to kind of explore a little bit more of like the character dynamics, to bring in some of the side characters and give them more space to kind of be themselves, because there's one character in particular that I introduced in book 3 2 2. I introduced this character in book 2, and she's kind of mostly been in the background, but book 5 is now where she gets to be like more center stage. She gets to actually do things because she's been pushed to the side, because she's not, a big powerful magician like the other warriors are. So now that the group's kind of been fractured, she gets to do more. She gets to make more decisions. And I'm excited to explore that side of this character rather than just have her be a static character in the background through the series. So that's exciting. It's the little things that I really nerd out about. But I will have the outline, which is absolutely just the most simplistic way I can explain the story to myself. Like, this happens, this happens, this happens. They go here, they do this. Basically, word for word, just like that. But, with more proper nouns mixed in. And then as I write the scenes, as I block the scenes out, I will basically go chapter by chapter. I write in order. I cannot write a story out of order. I can't do it. It gets confusing. I get confused. And then I've done that before, where I like wrote scenes that I knew were going to happen, that I was really excited to write before I got to those scenes naturally, like within the flow of the story. And then I basically had to rewrite that entire scene and take out things that I really, really liked that no longer fit within the scene, or try to force the scene to fit. And it just didn't, I don't like doing it. I had such a productive weekend last weekend, where I wrote the 20,000 words, and I feel very good about the beginning of book 5. It's really more like act 1 and a little bit of act 2, but I'm at that point where like I don't have that brain blast mindset of I know exactly what's going to happen in like the next section of the book. The next section of the book, between like act 1, like the end of act 1 and like the midpoint, is like a 50-word paragraph. That's what I have to work with. And so like I tried to do some on Sunday night, and I just stared at the screen. And there are some pieces of like the book 4 ending that I drafted when I thought it was going to be the final book that I can use for this. And I pulled a couple of those scenes out. And I know and I keep having to remind myself that this is a rough draft. It's supposed to be rough. I will smooth it out in revision. I just have to get the story on the page. I have to get the plot points on the page so that I know what I'm working with and what needs to go where and what I can move and what I can't move, what's not working. Are there any characters that I have completely forgotten about? Yes, there is. There is already a character that I have forgotten about. I forgot about him in book 4, so I'm gonna have to go back and figure out where he was in book 4. I don't want to kill him off because that just feels unnecessary. But I like this series. I like where book 5 is going. I like the plot points, the plot points that I'm hitting in book 5 so far, and I really like the character arc that I have kind of put together for the main character. It's just a longer and more dramatic character arc than she would have had in Act 3 of book 4 had it been the final book. Because now I get to kind of play with more elements. Because she's more of a morally gray character, but you don't really get to play with that side of her very often because she's kind of forced into this role. The premise of this entire series is that there is a coup in the castle Typhantasy, and the handmaiden to the princess is mistaken as the princess, and she is saved, and the princess is killed. And then, she gets swept away, she gets saved, and she's like, okay, anytime somebody's gonna know that I'm not the actual princess, somebody's gonna recognize me, and it's all gonna be over. I'm probably gonna be executed. I'm gonna have to escape. I'm gonna have to get away from this. And then, as the night goes on, she discovers that the entire royal family is either missing or killed. Anyone who would know that she's not the real princess is gone or missing, or gone or dead. So there is no one left to call her bluff. So she's like, "Oh no, I'm the real princess. Yes, that's me." And of course, then she gets swept into this plot to retake the throne, and there's like curses she has to break that can only be broken with royal blood. And she's like, "Oh no, how do I do that?" I'm really excited to how this series has turned out versus where it kind of started. Because in the very, very first drafts of this story, the main character was not so morally gray. I don't remember what book I read that had a morally gray or had a character who was more morally gray, and I was like, that is such a cool like character personality to have. And I was thinking about this story, I'm like, what if Asha had more of like a selfish reason for like wanting to be the princess? What if she just took it because she could? And so I kind of, when I went through in revision, I made her a little bit morally gray, not so much like the goody two shoes Bella Swan character with no personality. No, I wanted her to like make not so good decisions, make selfish decisions and then having to learn from them. And I really like how she has turned out. I like how the characters have turned out. I know I'm getting to this point where I'm like, it's done, and I'm reminiscing about this book that I wrote, this whole series, and I know it's not done, but it feels done because like I know what the plot is. How it ends. I've already written the ending. I just have to refit it onto book 5 and just make it worth all the effort to get there. And I just have to be in the headspace to actually like sit down and rough draft, because that rough drafting and revising something that you have already written are two very different tasks. They take a completely different mindset. I in it Jumping from like a book that is like in like draft 8 or 9 and then trying to like jump into something that is like rough draft stage, like I can't always switch gears so easily. And it took me a hot minute to switch gears back into rough draft. And it doesn't always do that. Like there's that one, I think last winter I rough drafted like 3 things like back to back to back, and it was just like, how? What? Huh? I don't usually do that, and I've not been able to do it since. I don't know what happened. So, book 5, it's coming along. It's about 20,000 words, 21,000 words, roughly 20,000 words. Act 1 is done. I will get into the middle. What is that? Act 2. My goodness, why I couldn't think of the word 2. I will get into like the next leg of the book, and I'm taking this a little slower. I'm not forcing myself to write. I'm not forcing the words out. Like if I don't know what's going to happen next, I just kind of I'll take a break. Like okay, I'm going to read tonight instead. And I'm kind of letting the story unfold naturally as I go, like scene by scene by scene. And I'm making notes as I go, like, hey, what if this character was here? Or what time of day is it? Because like one of my first books, I completely screwed up the timeline. Like it was summer for like 3 books in the Stars and Bones, and we were doing revision, and one of my editor pointed out, she's like, hey, it's been spring for a long time. And I was like, yeah, you're right. They can't go ride horses across the kingdom and back and it still be fall. Yeah, no, you're right. I get it. So like ever since then I have like been meticulous about like what time of day it is when a scene is taking place. What time of year is it? Like just so it doesn't happen again. So that's my writing update. It's not very exciting. I don't have any major breakthroughs to share. I'm a little nasally. I don't know if you can hear it. Something is blooming in my sinuses or but thank you for joining me. If you like this kind of content, I try to do one of these every week. I have some other things planned, some actual like scripted videos, but I don't like how those turn out. They feel scripted and it doesn't feel natural. Not like I'm doing this where I'm just sitting here talking and yabbering for 20 minutes. This April of 2026, marks 10 years since I self published my first book. That was in April something of 2016. So I wanted to do something for that. I just haven't had the motivation, the energy, or the time. I've had the time, just haven't had the motivation or the energy. So that may or may not be coming. I don't know. But again, if you like this kind of content, stick around, give me a subscribe. It feels really weird to ask for that, and I don't like it because like I don't do this. I don't want to be a YouTuber for a living. I just wanted to have like a little something just to kind of give you a behind the scenes, kind of like what it's like to be a writer, the things I think about, the things I go through in the process of like writing a book and getting it from like first inspiration to the published book on the shelf. But thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm going to go take a nap. I might play some Oblivion. I don't know. The night, I have like 2.5 whole hours before I have to go to bed. The night is still young. I'm not, so I'm probably have to go to bed early because my head kind of hurts. We're going to have to go over here because that's a disaster waiting to happen. Spilled one too many things on my desk.